We have joining us now Brigadier General in Reserves, Danny Van Buren, who's the former Chief Reservist Officer in the IDF, currently a research fellow at the Israel Center for Grand Strategy, the ICGS, and chairman of Nikraim Ledegel, which I guess I would translate that to
call to the flag, called upon duty.
Yeah. And the NGO that seeks to strengthen the Zionist, Jewish, and liberal and democratic identity of Israel. We have about 20 minutes, including Q&A, as well as the people in the journalists in the room. There are also journalists viewing from abroad, and everything is on the record. So I have an opening question for you, and then you can take it from where you'd like. My question is that even if we receive the quiet that we've been waiting for in whatever is to come of this deal, we will clearly not eradicate Hamas or the widespread terrorist ideology in one fell swoop. So as we look to the long-term options ahead, which is your field, what is your vision for Israeli sovereignty that includes the protection of its people?
Okay, so I would say that currently we're in a situation where the Trump administration plan has basically three levels, I would call them. The ground level is naturally the most obvious and the concrete one. It's releasing the hostages, ending the war in terms of Israel can live with, in terms of the security parameter and so on. The upper level, and I think this is the way we should contemplate the Trump plan, is the grand plan of the United States. It means that I would argue that the U.S. is after a major plan of creating what is called the IMEC, the India, Middle East, European Economic Corridor. And in this respect, the U.S. is after achieving Middle Eastern alliances between Israel, the Sunni moderate states, Turkey, and other states that can be joined to this alliance. And in order to do so, the U.S. is after expanding the Abraham Accords. And this is the grand plan. I think it's more relevant for the Trump administration than what is considered to be Trump's will to achieve the Nobel Prize and so on. This is really the strategy of the U.S. So we talked about the ground level of achieving the hostages and ending the war, the upper level, and I think the most difficult one is the middle level, which is the future settlements for ending the war and what's going to be in Gaza, and also, to be honest, what's going to be in Judea and Samaria, basically the Palestinian issue. So I think in this respect, the Trump plan, the 20-point plan, has major holes and it's not very concrete. So I would argue that in its will to achieve the grand plan of the IMEC alliances, and the concrete level of concrete goal of releasing the hostages, there is some major the medium level is quite ambiguous and not very concrete. It says that there should be some kind of a peace council within Gaza, and Tony Blair is supposed to be heading this council, and should be some kind of mechanism for future issues that may rise. And I think, to be honest, we all know, at least this is my claim, that Hamas is not going to hold or to keep any promises that it will be part of this settlement. It's also the same thing related to the Palestinian Authority, because ever since the Oslo Accords, we've witnessed numerous cases of violating the agreements, of educating to terror, of places where Palestinian Authority pays for the murderers of Israelis and so on. So in order to create a mechanism that will stand, that might ensure some stability to the area, stability or maybe future peace ambition, there should be very concrete and relevant mechanism to enforce the articles of the agreement. And I can give two different examples for a successful one and for something that didn't work in the past. The successful one would be the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt. In the security annex of the agreement, there were very concrete settlements or very concrete arrangements in terms of what kind of units the Egyptian army can deploy within the Sinai Desert. There is a very specific international mechanism that supervises the parties in terms of keeping these agreements.
Oh.
Yeah. And on the other side, on the negative aspect, we can look at what happened in Lebanon. In Lebanon, there is, after the 2006 Israel-Lebanon war, there was a US resolution 1701. And this resolution kind of used some vague terms in terms of the commitment of Hezbollah to withdraw to the north of the Litani River and the demilitarization of the southern Lebanon and so on. And the mechanism that was used was by UNIFIL, which ever since the first day didn't impose the commitment of Hezbollah. And when we saw Hezbollah getting stronger under the so-called supervision of UNIFIL. So these are two kind of mechanisms, one which was successful in keeping peace, and the other was very not successful, and we saw where this led us to the current Lebanon-Israel war during the last year. So my claim is that the Trump 20-point plan doesn't create a very good mechanism to impose on Palestinians to live up to the commitment for de-radicalization, demilitarization of the Gaza. And the only way for Israel to ensure that we have a future that will not include another future war with Gaza, is by keeping its sovereignty and keeping the Israeli right to enforce any violation of the agreement. We cannot give.
Like we do in Lebanon now.
Sorry?
Like we do in Lebanon.
Like we do in Lebanon now. So, and I claim that we even if have to do this, if we reach to an conflict with our ally, the US, because this is something which is very relevant, even crucial for the security of Israel. And Israel cannot just agree on some kind of mechanism in vague terms of a peace committee or any kind of organization that would need to impose the obligations of the parties. And there are 3 or 4 terms that Israel must insist in the medium level in order to end this war. And I'm not talking about releasing the hostages now, because none of us know whether Hamas will agree or disagree or try to put extra terms and so on. But in the medium level, Israel should end the war only in the following with the following conditions. First is the security parameter that Israel holds within Gaza that will allow us to actually defend the settlements or the kibbutzes and cities alongside Gaza.
And the extent, the width of that perimeter?
I'm not talking. I wouldn't like now to say whether this parameter should be 1 kilometer or 3 kilometers. This is for the army to decide which is the ground place which is the best for us to defend the sovereignty of Israel. The second condition has to be the complete demilitarization of Gaza. And we are currently witnessing all kinds of demands by the Hamas to demilitarize only aggressive or attack weapons and so on. I'm talking about any aspect of potential military action against Israel, including the tunnels, whatever happens underneath the Gaza ground. And I think the third and most crucial term would be for Israel to keep its right to impose any kind of infringement by Hamas, like you just mentioned, like happens in Lebanon. This is the only way for Israel to secure its sovereignty, and we shouldn't let this to be in the hands of any international committee, because this will be the ground for future escalation and potentially future war. That's it for me.
Next time for questions.
Very optimistic. Yeah, we have a bit of time for questions. I promised Kana because I cut you off in the
Okay.
last one. So just please remind your media outlet and name.
Okay, my name is Hannah Berry. I'm field correspondent of outlets in Spanish, Spain and Latin America. I wonder, well, there's so many questions, but what you just said, the last point, these three demands that Israel should not surrender. Does it give, in your opinion, does it give us the horizon of really a really probable agreement to which Trump will agree, with which Trump will agree? Because we know Trump decides Hamas gave a good answer, okay, even if it had nothing to do with his plan, he said, okay, yes, but. So how do you see the dynamics with our Israel's ally regarding those points that you say Israel should not surrender? And the follow-up to that question is whether Israel should not surrender those terms, even if that means no hostages are freed now because there's no agreement.
Yeah. Well, my simple answer would be yes for the first question, because Israel must not surrender to any of the demands, whether it doesn't secure its future security arrangements, because we know that when we'd like to please our alliances, our US alliance, and to please Trump, this could not be in the cost of the future, potential war and the future potential threat on the security of Israel. And we try to overlook any kind of infringement by the Palestinians. We did so in the Judea and Samaria. We did so once the Palestinian Authority kept on, encouraging terrorism and so on. And we're now talking about potential of creating really a new Middle East in terms of changing the dynamic what happened here during the last 100 years. Trump said it is 3,000 years or whatever, but there is a conflict that has been going on for 100 years, and it's all based on Israel chasing after peace. And I think it's time for us to change the point of view. We need to change we need to chase security arrangements. This could lead to potential peace in the future, because you reach peace by exercising force, as bad as it seems. And your second question, which is very difficult to answer in the perspective of an Israeli, I think that the hostages are a crucial aim for the war. We should do anything within our power to release them, but not in the price of the future security of Israel. As bad as it might seem.
It's not politically correct.
It's not politically correct. But we should do everything we can in terms of military actions, and if these military actions will lead to an agreement of releasing the hostages, what happened so far, so this is the way to release them. And we cannot ensure that we are not risking the hostages, the same as we cannot ensure that we are not risking soldiers who are fighting in Gaza. This is unfortunately the cost of war, but now we are at a struggle for the security of Israel for the next decades. So never in the history of international conflicts there was a position where any kind of state gave up its future security to release hostages or to release war captivities. So yes, we should do everything we can, also risking soldiers in military operations to release the hostages, but not give up on these three terms which I emphasized, because they are crucial for our future security.
Yes, go ahead.
This is a Japanese newspaper. And Hamas stick to keep weapons. Hamas refused to what will happen? How is Israel going to react?
Now, what we have been witnessing so far is whenever Israel wants, Israel can take parts of Gaza. Israel is much stronger than Hamas. I just recently talked yesterday to a commander that is located within Gaza, and he claims that in any combat, any conflict within Hamas terrorists, and the IDF, the terrorists run away. So for us, to complete the conquering Gaza and the refugee camps, the central refugee camps, is a matter of decision. So we would like for us not to risk soldiers, and naturally we would like Hamas to give up the weapons and to reach an agreement for releasing the hostages. Of course, this is something we prefer to do, but if they don't, so we have no other options. But eliminating Hamas, taking over the Gaza, I claim that for a medium term, Israel should have imposed a military to control military and the civilian aspects of Gaza in order to be able to transfer it to any international committee or any international body, because Hamas will not voluntarily give up its sovereignty in Gaza. So yes, if they refuse, we have to act military. Yes,
other questions? I want to add a question about some of the work that you've been doing has to do with kind of strengthening Israel from within and bridging gaps between different parts of society. We're now 2 years into the war. We've seen massive protests calling to end the war. And from the solution that lies on the table right now, which include the criteria that you've put forth, this could mean extending the war even further. Are you confident in the resilience of Israeli society and the divisions among us that there'll be more ability to keep going, or could this, bring down the government even? How long can this go on for, really?
No one can say in terms of weeks or months how long this can go on. I think that for us, for Israel, it's very bad news, the divisions within the Israeli society. I'm sorry to say that some of them are driven by only political aspects in terms of, not dealing with the ideology, but with political conflicts. And I think if you ask any Israeli, what will be your conditions to end the war? I think most of the Israelis will agree that we cannot end the war just by getting back the hostages, which, don't get me wrong, it's crucial. I don't think that the hostages we should give up on them. But most of Israeli would agree that we should end the war only if we secure our sovereignty. So how much this can go on, I don't know. But I think once we agree that we should, if we get to the point that Hamas will not give up their weapons and will not give up the hostages, we can end the war within a couple of weeks if we decide to do so.
Good.
Possible?
Yeah.
I have 2 questions. First of all, you analyze the different options. What do you feel now will happen when, on one hand, you are convinced those security needs should not be surrendered? On the other hand, we are dealing with a president who supports Israel, but who has his agenda, and it's difficult to contradict him publicly.
Sure.
So what do you think might happen? We know to whom the prophecy has been given, but anyway, that's one question. If there's time, I wanted to ask something about, you were the chief officer for Miluim, right, for the reservists. I think one of the biggest damages to Israeli society is, of course, all the effects of the long service in Miluim and the competency trauma. And how do you see Israeli society now, after 2 years of this need of dealing with war, people with normal life altered? How do you see, we speak a lot about resilience and of course heroism, and that's true, but what's your summary of Israeli society 2 years ago?
Okay, so I would say that in terms of regarding your first question, I believe that there is a lot going on behind the scenes. I really believe that Israel and America are very aligned in terms of the future arrangements, and even some conflicts are being, previously decided upon, because we naturally have to keep our major security aspects of any deal, and sometimes they are not aligned with the US ones. And I would say that given the fact that the Trump administration and President Trump himself put all of his weight on this agreement in terms of creating an alliance with Turkey, with Saudi Arabia, with Emirates, with Singapore, with any moderate country in the area, and he puts his own prestige on the line. I would believe that the negotiators such as Turkey and Qatar would bring Hamas to a point where Israel would be able to agree to the terms. But as I said before, there might be some gap between future arrangements. That this is what I'm afraid of. You know, I believe, if you, as you say, the prophecy is not for me to say, but I would argue that I believe that regarding releasing the hostages and ending the war, there should be a breakthrough within the next couple of days. This is my assumption. I'm not sure that the same goes with future arrangements, and this is my concern, as I said before. Regarding the Israeli society resilience, I think it's much greater than what is being reflected upon on the media. I talked to, you mentioned Miluimnikin, the reservist. I talked to a guy yesterday. He's the lieutenant colonel that came straight from Gaza. And what he says that regardless the fact that there is a lot of burden upon the reservists and the fact that they are, you know, serving for 200, 300, 500 days we did during the last 2 years, they are determined to finish the war by a victory. And all of his soldiers are like this, and their families are like this. And what has been reflected in the media is the view of a small part of the Israeli society, small but important, with many connections in the media, in the political parties, and so on. And it is a concern. I cannot just overlook the fact that, you know, we're facing a war for 2 years now, but Israeli society is much stronger, in my view, than what is being reflected upon in some of the mainstream media of Israel.
Last question, because we're out of time. But last question, go ahead.
We're not planning for a specific meeting. And my question is, after 2 years, the war is finished. IDF did not succeed. And you said in 2 to 3 weeks it could be possible. What would it look like? And what would be the victory?
So I would say that I don't agree with your assumption, or with the assumption that you said that the IDF is not successful, because what we have done so far, and I will relate it immediately to Gaza, but we have done so far, the IDF has done so far with our partners, with our allies, and so on, is really changing the what has been going on in the Middle East. I just can only remind you what happened in Iran, in Lebanon, in Syria, and the fact is that in Gaza, mainly due to the hostages issue, which kind of limits the IDF actions. What has been going on is Hamas being step by step put out of power, and being created also an opposition from within the Palestinian society. So what remains for the IDF to do is to finish taking control of all over the Gaza, mainly now the Gaza city, and taking Hamas out of power. What would be the face of victory? It's not eliminating or killing the last terrorist, because we won't do so. But the final aspect of victory, in my view, is taking Hamas out of its civilian and military power and creating some different administration. Once we manage to do so, and this goes through conquering the Gaza city, I believe that this can be reflected as a victory. Naturally, as I said before, some kind of guerrilla operations, many terrorists will still remain, the ideology will still be there. So it's not, you know, you cannot finish immediately something that has been going on for 30 or 40 or 50 years. But in terms of this war, taking Hamas out of power would be, in my eyes, a victory.
General, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.